Hello, Neal Topf. Welcome to the Doing CX Right show.
Thank you so much, Stacy. It is a true privilege and honor to be in your presence to share the spotlight with you. I'm an admirer of your show and all the incredible work that you're doing. So it is a thrill to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited about this topic. Excited about being with you more than professionally. We've been longtime friends. And so those are the best guests to have.
They are. They truly are. I know I'm not the first one to say that you're my Stacy, you're my friend, you're my go-to person, you're my expert, you're my thought leader. I feel about you that level of admiration, and I know I'm not the only one.
Oh, thank you. Big hearts for those who can see this. Well, Neal, I know the answers, but I want my audience, in case they don't know you, who are you? What do you do professionally?
Professionally, I am the president and co-founder of Callzilla. We are an outsourced contact center. As some people refer to us, we're a BPO. We are not the people that call you at 6 o'clock at night to offer you a credit card or to charge you or try to get money from you. We are not those guys anymore. We are a group of individuals that are the eyes, ears, and spokespeople for important brands in their communications with customers. That's what we do.
And a little secret to those that, not really a secret, but I used to work for a competitor. No longer. So our conversations were a little different, but now they're, back to a lot of knowledge sharing for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to ask one personal question before we really dive into the meat of actions. And that is helping people know a little bit about you and where you come from. And I think a very telling way about hearing this is by my favorite question, thinking back in time to your younger 20-year-old self, Neal. Based on what you know now that you didn't know then, what advice would you tell younger Neal?
I love the question. I have seen you ask this question of your guests, and I had never really thought about what would my answer be to it. So now I got to think hard. The question, I think many of us would take it as, oh my God, I'm so much smarter now. What would I do differently? And I'm not sure that I'm going to answer it in that same way. I'm not sure I'm going to answer it differently. I'm going to hopefully bet on my 20-year-old self and say that what I did then was pretty accurate. I think it got me to a different place, but a place that I'm comfortable with all these years later. I would say that the beat that I marched to when I was a 20-something was I was always the black sheep, the one that was doing things differently. It just came natural to me to be a little bit of a rebel without a cause, sometimes with a cause, sometimes without a cause. But I think bottom line would be, you know what? I'm going to double down on that and continue to zig when others are zagging. And the 20-year-old me, and for those current 20-somethings, it would be to reinforce that idea. It's okay to zig while others are zagging, especially now. Differentiation is okay. It's valued now. So I think I would play those cards again. Be different. Stand out.
Yes. Interesting that you pulled out differently, because I didn't say differently. I just said, what would you tell your younger self? So it's funny how you went to that mindset, but I agree. I love it. All right. Now let's get to the heart of this is the Doing Customer Experience Right show. So when I say those words, Neal, what comes to mind?
There are so many challenges in customer experience today. And what we're trying to address today happens to be a Thursday. It's going to be different Thursday afternoon. It's going to be different Friday morning, and probably vastly different on Monday morning when we come back from the weekend.
Yeah.
The one common theme I think that's missing in customer experience that not enough people are talking about, it is a weakness for many, is math, basic math, understanding how this business works, the math of it, how much revenue a customer represents, how much it costs to acquire them, and what your allowable is to service them and to provide journeys. And I think brands are not clear enough in those numbers. And I think the practitioners, the ones that are creating a strategy, the ones that are in charge of executing the strategy, are not clear enough. And therefore, the most optimal decisions are not always made. And we make mistakes. We overspend or we underspend or we don't create the correct path or journeys, assuming certain things that may not always be accurate.
Mm-hmm. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think about one of the pain of trying to help change company cultures is that they don't see the ROI in customer loyalty. Do you find the same? Is that a common theme when you're talking to customers, clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we all have a tendency to say things like, oh, you must. By the way, if I hear the words, the phrase, you must, you have to, I cringe because I don't, what is you must or you should for you isn't necessarily what I must or should do for me. What works in one operation doesn't necessarily work in the other. And so I always take that stuff with a grain of salt, and I need to understand for my operation, for this particular client, doesn't necessarily work for that client. Same thing with different brands. What works to serve a cable television customer doesn't necessarily work for a healthcare customer or for a subscriber to a streaming service. Every business has its own unique math. And so I think it's not a cookie cutter approach, but ROI is a tricky thing. ROI assumes, mathematically speaking, by the way, I'm not a mathematician. I'm the furthest thing from it. But when I hear ROI, I think, okay, to know ROI, I need to know what it costs me and what's going to enter my wallet. You know, what revenue or income is going to hit, and what's the relationship between those things. Hopefully I'm going to have more revenue than cost. And what's that revenue going to look like over the lifetime or period of time that individual is a customer of mine. That's the way I'm trying to think things and explain things to my customers. Yes, there has to be ROI, but we have to be very clear on the math of what that really means.
Mm. Well, speaking of math, there's a lot of research out there, and I want to highlight a few and get your take on that, which you speak and write about, and that is a couple of them. One is 74% of customers who have a bad call experience will choose another business next time. One more. 61% customers would leave for a competitor after one bad experience. Tell me more about that and what's your view?
Yeah, I think that those statistics are certainly out there, whether it's 60%, it's 70%, it's a high number. We as brands don't have the luxury of treating our customers poorly. But I think we have to understand and define what poorly means. In my view, and what I think the most important message I try to share with my clients, and what I would recommend a brand is the critical thing is to respond quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But while you're responding, resolving. Respond and resolve. If you don't respond quickly, you're right. Consumers going to get upset that people aren't patient anymore. What they went through during the pandemic of waiting on hold, they don't want to do that anymore. They won't do it. Market's competitive. They will churn. But at the same time, answering is not the only factor. The bot can answer. A bot will answer. A bot will pick up and say, "Hello, thank you, Stacy, for calling. Thank you, Neal, for your email. Thank you for visiting our live chat." But if the bot or the live agent isn't capable of resolving the problem or answering the question, eventually we will lead to frustration. We will create a high effort experience, and the consumer will feel the same thing. Just because their call, email, or chat was answered quickly doesn't produce the same result as if it is resolved. If we respond quickly, if we resolve, then in my mind, we hopefully get to satisfaction or loyalty. And that's where the true ROI can come in.
Yes. Why is it so difficult? This is so intuitive. Doing customer experience right is not difficult, yet things get in the way. What gets in the way, in your opinion? We could talk about solutions after.
God, there's so many things. I've said this. If there's anything I would lay claim to, it might be this following statement. There is no, and you can fill in the blank, call center, contact center, customer experience. There's no easy button. Remember, I think it was the Staples.
Staples, yeah.
Right, the big red thing you'd press was the easy button, and guess what? All of a sudden, you would hear angels would appear, and harps were being played, and everything was
Yes.
okay. That doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in customer experience. It certainly doesn't exist in customer service. There's no easy button. You don't press something and everything is fine. There is science and there is art, and there's a mix of both. There is how do you create the correct journey? How do you shepherd a consumer through pre-purchase to purchase to post-purchase? There's lots of different things that pop up and bumps in that road that we can predict, and there's a ton of others that we can't predict. By the way, you add technology and the people that are designing the technology and implementing it, and all of a sudden you've got silos, you've got things that you haven't thought of, you've got integrations of things that just break. Things break, and so you can't create a perfect non-bumpy path. There's going to be bumps, but we have to be able to resolve them. Now, things are getting better. There are obviously more tools that are at our disposal, but there's art in the technology. The technology is not perfect, and even if it is perfect, there's art in it. Just prior to our meeting, I went through an internal review of some artificial intelligence that we're deploying for a client, and I saw brilliant things, and I saw half a dozen other areas of opportunity that we can fix and improve and strengthen and continue to tweak and get better. I guess bottom line is there's art in science, and the mixture and perfect proportions of each vary and depend from second to second. And that's why, as in my world as a service provider, we got to be really good at identifying and using the technology and using the human talent. Here's a problem. Here's high effort. Here's friction. How do we start to resolve those things quickly so that we can get ourselves off the hamster wheel and focus back on serving customers? We've got to get ourselves off the hamster wheel of doing, but creating problems, get out of our own way and start fixing the problems.
Oh, a lot there to unpack. Yeah. There's an author you told me about who's done some really interesting research. Can you share?
So if we're talking about John Goodman, I happen to have it next to me because it's in my office. I'm going to show this for those that are seeing. Those that are not watching it, you should watch. Check out Stacy's YouTube channel. Customer Experience 3.0 by an author named John Goodman. This is actually the most recent update to his previous edition. So this is literally hot off the presses here at the end of 2024. And I recommend this. I'm just starting to read through it now. But essentially, he's saying a lot of things. Part of the math is important. But there's one thing that I share with our clients is this following concept, especially in the age of automation and artificial intelligence. And it's the following letters: capital E, lowercase o, capital E. Ease of escalation. Why do I mention that? Everyone is talking about bots and artificial intelligence and automation, and we're just going to have more and more and more of those things. But as we know, they don't always work. Not every consumer wants to interact with a bot. Not every bot is able to resolve a consumer's problem. They're going to answer fast, but that's not sufficient based on what I just shared before. The successful brands that will continue to create loyal customers with high lifetime values will be able to have an escalation path for consumers that don't want to interact with a bot or are not getting their solution solved. So when the customer is saying zero or pressing zero or agent or representative, successful brands, loyal customers will have solutions that enable communication or escalation with, whether it's a live agent, whether it's just an agent or a supervisor, but an escalation path to resolution. That's essentially what John Goodman is saying, at least in the part of the book that I read right now. EOE, ease of escalation.
Ease of escalation. Yeah, I have not heard it in that framework. I love it. And it makes a lot of sense because when we are on hold, when we can't get through, when we have to repeat ourselves too, that's so frustrating and irritating to a robot to then get to an agent who asks you the same question. And then you get transferred around a lot. I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about. The escalation and effort, both.
escalation and effort. If there is not an escalation path, the consumer is going to feel that they need to exert a high amount of effort.
Yeah.
What a terrible situation to have to put a consumer through high effort.
I want to go back to the numbers because, again, people are questioning. Like, this is not e-commerce where you see the cash register go off when someone makes a purchase, right? The bells whistle, the cash register goes. Customer experience isn't like that. So, how do you actually apply the numbers? Someone listening to this says, should I invest in customer experience? Do I even, if I was going to outsource my contact center and invest more in customer service? I mean, I know those are two separate questions, but in general or both, what do you say?
So the timing of our session today is interesting because I'm going to go back to John Goodman. He literally posted something today. He talks about step one, the value of customer. So quantifying the value of your customer. In other words, what is the lifetime value? If you know that your customer over their lifetime is going to contribute $500, great. Now you have to understand how much it costs to service that person, and service will include a path of escalation, interacting with the contact center. How much does that cost? If you know, for example, and I'm paraphrasing, I mean, here it's right here for those who are seeing it. I have the post open here, but I'm going to paraphrase it. He says that if you know that the customer is going to contribute $500 in customer lifetime value, but it only costs $25 as an example to serve them and provide an escalation point, why would you not do that? $25, $500. Hello? Most people would recognize that if it only costs you $25 to get back $500, you would do it. No CFO is going to say no. But we have to understand that point. By the way, there's another interesting thing here that and I'll share this and then stop. Step two, 50% of customers with failed escalations are lost. Meaning 50% of your customers will be lost if you don't provide them a path to, when they hit zero or scream zero, representative, I want to talk to somebody. If you're not doing that, you're going to lose 50% of them. So going back to the example, if you know that a consumer is going to contribute $500 to you, but you risk losing half of that, your $500 all of a sudden becomes $250. No CFO is going to be happy with that. The CFO is going to want $500. You got to know the numbers. And I think as CX practitioners, we don't necessarily have to be the ones to calculate down to the last cent. What is the customer lifetime value? The finance people can do that. But we need to be able to speak this language and have at our fingertips the approximate value and use those values for decision making of how do we staff? What do we do? What is the journey? What is the escalation point? What does it cost? What is it going to save? And if we don't know that, we're SOL.
Technology is rapidly changing the way we work. How is AI come into the picture when we're talking about know your numbers and making this affordable and not cutting corners on customer service? What's your thoughts on AI and investments and return?
Yeah, I think the jury is still definitely out. I continue to hear a stat somewhere around 60% of people still want to only speak with a human. Businesses need to find ways that are affordable to combine the environment of AI, but also have some degree of humans that are available. AI is not going to be able, at least not in the next year, maybe two, to be able to fully resolve some of the complex stuff that we have to resolve. It can pair off 10%, 20%. That's great. Eventually it will do more. But we need to provide the escalation point. The finances are still, I think it's in an evolving set of figures of how much you can save. We all know that a bot should cost pennies on the dollar, but you got to factor in the cost of resolution, the cost of service, the cost of losing a consumer. If that 60% is really true, and you're not servicing 60% of the people the way they want, and we're basically showing them the door to churn out, that's not going to help either. I think those metrics and the math it's an evolving thing. And I think I would never recommend to a brand at this point in 2024 to eliminate your live agents, eliminate your people, migrate everything to automation. I don't think you can do that yet. I think that's why we have not seen mass migration, at least not yet.
I wonder if companies will start to segment their customers, whereby lower paying valued customers will get more of the automation and your high loyal paying customers will get the human. Like if you think about airlines, right? Those big points valued frequent flyers get one experience and others different. Do you see that coming?
I absolutely do. I think that the airline example is superb. It's probably the easiest for us to think through. The consumer that only buys first class.
Yeah.
Are you going to send them? You want to provide high touch point, high quality service, all about lifetime value. The lifetime value of, let's just say, Emirates Airlines or Singapore Airlines of the customer that goes and travels business class or first, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. You can afford to invest in servicing that type of customer more so than you would the person that probably flies, for example, I'm just guessing, Spirit Airlines that is doing the most bargain version of those tickets. If you're Spirit, you probably want to automate as much of that as possible. Your cost of service can't exceed a certain allowable threshold. And so you're more likely to use automation, I would imagine. Again, I don't know Spirit. I'm not a travel industry, so I'm guesstimating, right? As an example. I think that segmentation probably already exists today to some degree.
Yeah, I see that as a trend. What else do you see? Put on your prediction hat on. What's coming?
I think I already kind of alluded to it that there's a lot of shiny objects out there with AI and ChatGPT. I think that there will continue to be mass migration, the thought of mass migration, but as the technology proves it is not fully ready and or there is consumer backlash, I think that we will start to see unexpected growth in BPOs and in service providers that are utilizing humans versus AI. I also think that if you look at the financial markets, that there's going to be a glut of capacity of the AI providers. There's going to be consolidation in that world. Too many providers already. Everyone's racing to be an AI provider. I think that there will be consolidation there because either not all companies are going to be able to compete or they're not all going to attract investment because there's so many of them. And the technology may not entirely work and the ability to differentiate themselves. I mean, you probably get it as well. How many emails or phone calls a day do you get from an AI provider?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's so much differentiation. I think there's just everyone's racing to do and to try to attract investment, but not all are going to be successful. And there will be some contraction. There will be consolidation in that world.
Yes, and that's where marketing comes into play, right? Who has the coolest messaging and visualization and communication will probably be a leader. That's when everything else becomes the same.
No doubt.
Yeah. I also want to mention a favorite use of AI that a lot of times we'll talk about customer service agents. They're afraid to get on the call with a customer their first time, that whole nesting stage. And so that's something I've seen so powerful where you can give them a tool that they can practice before they get on with a real customer. And they can actually, there's technology that lets them rehearse and make mistakes, and their boss doesn't even know it until they approve their boss hearing that recording. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, so I just a moment ago I shared with you that I did an internal review of some new technology we're rolling out. The common label or name for that technology is Agent Assist.
Yeah.
So it's a piece of technology that sits on top of phone calls or chats and emails that is listening or watching in real time to what is being said by the consumer and what is being said and responded to by the customer service agent in the contact center. And the Agent Assist is suggesting things in real time, placing them on the screen of the agent. Say this, say that, select here, put that there. Or it just does the work of uploading the text and placing it in certain fields and corrects things in real time so that spelling mistakes or selecting of reason codes or disposition codes is not done or depends on humans anymore, but the tool is trained based on logic that we impart on it. Select this disposition code or reason code, place that text here or there. There's so much less that the agent needs to be responsible for, and therefore the propensity to commit errors reduces, and therefore I think the agent can feel more secure and confident in their role.
Absolutely. Well, rapid fire questions here because we're coming to the end. It goes way too fast. Leadership. What is the best leadership advice you've received or given?
Find a mentor. Find somebody that has done it or is doing it. If you're young, maybe it's your boss, maybe it's a family member. Find an older brother or sister type persona in your company or out there that can help you to answer questions, to provide guidance. I see too many young people that don't have mentors and maybe don't even have enough support at home to go to turn to someone to ask questions. Get a mentor. I was so blessed to have two incredible mentors that I worked for. They were my bosses. I adored them. And I think my work style was very reflective of how they were and they treated me and how they performed their job. I also had a person a boss who I despised at the time, but I learned so much from her. And those 365 days I worked under her were so miserable and so disappointing and so uncomfortable. But I reflect back and remember that even though that experience was hard, I still learned from it. And that's okay too. It's okay to go through a hard experience. We don't need a safe room. We don't need safe spaces. It's okay to have conflict and learn from it. We don't always need safe spaces, but we have to learn how to learn and adapt.
Last question, very quickly. What's the one takeaway you want people to remember?
Live agent, live agent, live agent. Number one. Number two, if you give me a second one, fail often, fail fast. It's okay to fail, but fail fast. Failure is okay, but fail fast and move on. Get going.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here with me today and sharing your wealth of knowledge. And I will share ways to connect with you in the show notes. So thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Stacy. I really meant it. It was a pleasure to be here to share the spotlight together with you for a minute. I'm so thrilled to see your success and the knowledge and wisdom and exposure that you share on this podcast with the CX community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.